In this video, we're going to go ahead and discuss and review this phenomenal, stupendous, and yet incredible auto rifle called the Positive Outlook. In simple layman's terms, my friends, this is by far the new meta. Hands down, this is by far the best auto rifle in this entire game, period. The reason why this is because of its phenomenal intrinsic perks, and we're going to get into that in just a second. But I also want to let you guys know that if you want to happen to get your hands on this thing, all you have to do is simply play the brand new DLC called Curse of Osiris and play through that campaign mode. As you go through the campaign, you're then going to get the option to either choose this auto rifle, a scout rifle, or a hand cannon, all three of which are going to be from the Vanguard, but you also have to note here that you're only going to get the option to do so once. If you happen to have multiple characters, you're not going to be able to go through and pick the other weapons later, as the game does not give you the option to go ahead and pick those other weapons. That's why it's very, very important here to pick the one weapon that you know that you're going to like, and in this case for me, it happened to be this fantastic Positive Outlook, and I would strongly advise you guys to get this thing as well, because like I said from before, this auto rifle is the best in the entire game. You also may be able to get this weapon a different way, and I'm not exactly sure as to what those are yet, but I'm guessing it's going to be probably through the Vanguard, so you can rank that faction up and possibly get this thing to drop, or you could possibly get it through Legendary Engrams, or even a Luminous Engram, or something else along those lines, and still have a very high chance of getting this phenomenal beast. Now that you guys know how to get this thing, the only thing left to do is to hit that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the video. As you all know, I'm a very firm believer in looking at the analytics of how exactly these optimal time to kills and also body shot time to kills function with each one of these weapons. For the Positive Outlook, this math was not done, and so I had to do it myself, but I'm fairly confident and almost 110% accurate on exactly these results. So if we're looking at this weapon in particular, it does 22 points of damage in the head and 17 points of damage in the body. This means that you need 9 critical headshots and 1 body shot for the optimal time to kill at exactly 1.33 seconds. If you were to look at solely body shot time to kill, you would need 12 body shots, and that would equate to an optimal body shot time to kill at exactly 1.57 seconds. Now the reason why this weapon is so phenomenal and stupendous is not just based on these kill times, but because of one very important and intrinsic perk that this weapon has, and it's called Kill Clip. What Kill Clip states is that reloading after a kill grants increased damage. So exactly how much this damage output is what I really wanted to calculate and then redo these brand new optimal time to kills based on the headshot and body shot time to kills. So with Kill Clip active, this weapon does 29 points of damage in the head. Yes, you heard me right, 29 points of damage in the head. And it also does 23 points of damage in the body. This means that you would need exactly 6 critical headshots and 1 body shot for an optimal time to kill at exactly 0.92 seconds. My friends, that's less than 1 second and is absolutely one of the best kill times in this entire game. If you were to look at solely body shot time to kills, you would need exactly 9 body shots, and that would once again equate to an optimal body shot time to kill at exactly 1.33 seconds. So without Kill Clip active, you guys can really understand that this thing is very, very powerful on its own at exactly an optimal time to kill of 1.33 seconds. With Kill Clip active, this thing becomes the best proficient auto rifle in this entire game with an optimal time to kill at 0.92 seconds. Both these things being said, you guys can really understand as to why this auto rifle is such a powerhouse in PvP and it absolutely decimates Guardians 24/7. Now there's a bunch of other factors as to why this weapon is so powerful, and that's due to one of the very important and intrinsic perks on this weapon, and it's called Precision Frame. Precision Frame states that this weapon's recoil pattern is more predictably vertical, and this is the exact same perk as what we had in Destiny 1 called Counterbalance. Counterbalance only allowed the weapon to have vertical recoil, and that's exactly the same case with why this weapon is so proficient, because once again, its vertical recoil is just that, only vertical. And what you guys can also do is have the option to choose between one of 3 sights. The first one's called Jolt PS, followed by Flash HS5, and then Transmission MS7. Now Transmission MS7 is one of the worst sights in this entire game, as it gives you the best range, but that range you don't need because all auto rifles have phenomenal range already as just a base stat in this game. They can easily compete with scout rifles, and as much as what I would like to have this change, it is what it is and there's nothing that you or I can do about it. So that's why you don't need to have on this Transmission MS7 scope, because its range is simply unnecessary. Thus, you have the option of choosing between the Jolt PS sight along with the Flash HS5 sight, and those are very, very nice because they both have a short zoom and a medium zoom scope. The Jolt PS scope is a short zoom Omolon sight that gives a minor boost in range and a slight boost in handling speed. The Flash HS5 sight is a medium zoom red dot oblong sight that highlights enemy targets and gives a range increase with an even greater handling speed. In my mind and in my personal opinion, this Flash HS5 sight is by far the best, and that's because the reticle is more proficient and it doesn't really go away that often. On top of this, I find that when I'm using the HS5 scope, I find that the reticle is much more proficient in terms of not jumping around from left to right, up and down, and whatnot. However, inversely related to this, we had that Jolt PS scope, and this does the exact opposite. It has a much wider range of flinching, going left, right, up, and down, and for this sole reason, I highly recommend that you guys do not use this and use that Flash HS5 scope instead. The next two perks that you guys can choose from is either called Accurized Rounds or Armor Piercing Rounds. Accurized Round states that this weapon can fire longer distances, implying the weapon's range is increased significantly. And inversely related to this, we also have Armor Piercing Rounds. And Armor Piercing Round states that bullets fired from this weapon cause extra damage to shields and overpenetrate targets, giving a slight boost in range. In all honesty, you guys can choose between one of these two perks, and it's really just depending upon your personal preference and playstyle, as both of them are very proficient. What I happen to use is Armor Piercing Rounds because I find that since this weapon is an energy weapon, it's classified as that an energy weapon, and it can down shields as well as Titan shields extremely fast. When you couple along with this the Armor Piercing Rounds and that ability, it absolutely demolishes those shields, and within literally half a clip, that Titan shield is already gone, and that's why I like to have on Armor Piercing Rounds. If you want to, you most certainly could have on Accurized Rounds, as that is going to give you that little bit of an extra range increase. But what I found is that with the range that this weapon already has intrinsically, you don't need to have on Accurized Rounds, and if you wanted to, you could, and you could easily compete with the Might of Distance from Cross Map, but again, I like to have on Armor Piercing Rounds because it absolutely melts and incinerates and decimates those Titan shields easily. As I mentioned from before, the very last perk on this weapon is called Kill Clip, and Kill Clip states that reloading after a kill grants increased damage. Now you guys already know the effects of this perk, and again why it's so proficient and why in my humble opinion this is by far the best auto rifle in this entire game is because of this one sole perk, and what it ultimately leads to is the optimal time to kill with and without the weapon perk procced. Now that you guys know all the perks in the weapon and how they affect it, you really have to look at the weapon's intrinsic stats and how these base stats affect the overall weapon. The very first important one that's absolutely exceptional and phenomenal and stupendous in every way, shape, and form is the range stat. The range stat on this weapon is 70 out of 100, and with this base range stat alone, it's truly exceptional and why you're able to easily cross-map Guardians without even having any extra additional range perks. For this sole reason, I would strongly advise using the perks that I suggested, because like I said from right here, this range stat is absolutely incredible and simply cannot be beat. The next thing to note is the weapon's recoil direction, as it's got a recoil direction at 66 out of 100. The reason again why this is so great is because it couples along phenomenally with that intrinsic perk called Precision Frame, and with that counterbalance perk active along with its recoil direction, this thing is an absolute laser beam that barely ever misses headshots. When you couple along with this a fantastic reload speed at 49 out of 100, that's almost like having on Outlaw, and because of that, you're going to be able to proc Kill Clip quite often, and is another reason as to why this weapon is an absolute decimating monster within PvP. One stat that isn't actually quite good on this weapon is one that's called the aim assistance, as the aim assistance is only at 36 out of 100. That's why you have to be very proficient with all your shots, because the recoil direction is really going to play a huge factor into this, and also your sensitivity. Your sensitivity that you use on this weapon is really going to determine as to how proficient that you can be, and so for you, I would highly recommend that you guys use a sensitivity that you're comfortable with, because the aim assistance is really not going to come into play, at least that often. The very last thing that I want to mention about this auto rifle is its zoom factor, as the zoom factor is at 16 out of 100, and this is very nice because it's actually quite low. Because it's so low, that's why I would highly recommend that you guys use that Flash HS5 sight, because even though it's a medium zoom scope, that sight is really not that proficient in terms of the overall zoom, and it could easily be classified as a short zoom scope, and why it's so phenomenal for those close, mid, and far range engagements. Not just this, but that Flash HS5 scope highlights the enemies, and because this weapon has such a low aim assistance, that sight is really going to come into handy as it makes the enemies pop vividly on your screen, allowing you to hit more of your headshots. All in all, if I had to classify whether or not this weapon was good, bad, or neither, well, I think that the answer is pretty obvious, as this thing, like I said from before, is the best auto rifle in this entire game. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy this as well. That's pretty much all I've got for you as of right now. Great gaming, until next time.